Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Tech with Yashwant. In this video, let us understand the official AWS EKS MCP server and also the demo part of it. Alright, so let's get started. So as you can see here, the official AWS EKS MCP server, if you want to ask the MCP server to create the cluster, it can do that as well. If you want, you can ask to write the deployment file, it will do that as well. And let's say you make some changes or make some error by yourself on the deployment file and ask the MCP file or the MTP server to fix the issue. It will recognize that as well and try to fix that issue as well. So all these things are possible even by the official EKS MCP server launched by AWS. So you can trust this demo. Now, traditionally, if you ask me how you were managing the Kubernetes management, right? So how were you managing the Kubernetes cluster in your environment? So if you go by the traditional approach, if you find any issues, you would just Google the issue and try to resolve the issue by yourself. Also read the documentation of Kubernetes and try to understand what is happening and where the exact issue is, and then try to find the issue and then fix the issue as well. It cannot be an issue altogether. If you want to implement something new, then you would approach that with a Google search, then followed by the documentation, and it takes days for you to implement that. Whereas with the LLM existence, we are in the era of LLM, where you can ask the LLM what is wrong with this approach, and LLM gives you the steps where exactly it can be the issue, and it will not give you the exact solution, but it would recommend this might be the issue and this is where the issue could be, and you can act on that. But the pass or the question here is that LLM cannot pass and it cannot act on yourself, right? So it wants you to take the action and it cannot act. And one important thing is that it works with the pre-trained data. So with the data which is already existing, with the generic data, or it can be customized as well when it comes to the GPTs where K8s is there, like K8s GPT. There it is trained on the Kubernetes details only. So that might work well, but in the other LLMs like JackGPT, Claude, or it can be even Perplexity. So these kind of LLMs will give you more generic response rather than fixing the issue itself. And it will have a limited way to troubleshoot the issue as well. So let's say you copy the error message and you paste it, it will give you the suggestion as to where it can be wrong. Whereas with LLM and with MCP, so you can create a cluster, you can create YAML files, you can ask it to take actions as well. For example, if you want to deploy the deployment file, go ahead and run the deployment.yaml file for me. So all these things are possible with LLM and MCP servers. You can even ask to read out the command output, right, and change the YAML and take necessary actions to fix the issues, and all those things are possible. And you don't need to memorize kubectl commands anymore. So you can use the natural languages that are create a cluster for me with so and so things. So I will demonstrate to you, then it would be more clear to you as well. And going forward, this will be the future, because most of the organizations are adapting these changes. And I will talk about the interesting question, will it replace our job at the end? So hold on till the very end as well. Now let us understand what is this EKS MCP server and the approach, or you can rather say what is the architecture looks like. So if you see here, we have a user who is interacting with the LLM and the MCP client. So which is hosted, which is an application which is having access to any of the LLM along with the MCP client. So here it is going to interact with the Kubernetes cluster directly, And in this case, I'm using VS Code and Amazon Q, which is also a developer CLI, which will help you in working with MCP as well. And AWS has got MCP server for EKS, which I can say it's a tool to create an EKS cluster, deploy YAML files. If you want to troubleshoot the issue, you can do that as well with the help of EKS MCP server. And the documentation to that is here. If you see here, AWS MCP servers, you can visit awslabs.github.io. Under MCP, you can see all the MCP servers that are available. And you can also see the key features that are there at the moment. The prerequisites, that is to install Python 3.10 and above. And you also need to install a UE package manager, install and configure the AWS CLI with configurations or credentials. And you would also need to allow these read-only operations policies, write policies, and all those things, right? So after having that, you also need to add this MCP server into your Amazon Q developer CLI. So the cool thing is that you can literally ask the Amazon Q CLI to go ahead and install the AWS EKS MCP server for you and also configure it. So that capability is also available, right? So let's do one thing. Let's head over to the VS Code and also see how we can utilize AWS our Amazon Q developer CLI to install the MCP server of Amazon EKS, right? So let's just copy this one. Okay, let me go into my VS Code. So if you see here, I've created a simple file or directory here, EKS MCP demo. I'm inside the same directory. So if you want to interact with Q, you just can type in Q chat. And if you do not know what is Q and how to install it, I've created a separate video on that. So go ahead and check that out before coming to this video. So you can just type in Q chat. A chat prompt will open up for you where you can ask the LLM and the required details, and it will act for you as well. Okay, so let me type that and hit enter. And if you see here, I have 4 MCP servers already there, which is AWS Labs diagram, pricing MCP server, EKS MCP server, and CDK MCP server. So what I've done is I've already installed and configured the EKS MCP server. But don't worry if you do not know how to do that. So you can ask your Q chat to do that as well. For example, please, let's type in please install and configure the AWS EKS MCP server for me. So if you just type this and hit enter, it will think on itself, and it will start the processing as well. So let's say it needs to install something. It will go to the repository. It will find what is required. Let's say if it is already installed, it will also tell you that it's already installed. You don't have to worry about it, right? So let's wait for a moment and see what it actually does, right? So it's thinking. So if you see here, I'll help you install and configure the AWS EKS MCP server. This will add EKS management capability to the Q CLI environment. Let me first check if you have the necessary prerequisites and then install the server. If you see here, I will run the following shell command. It is checking Python 3 is available or not. Let me hit T to trust and to allow. So I've entered T and entered the prompt. So if you read the documentation, it is having the requirement or prerequisites to have Python 3.10 and above, install UE and configure CLI. So it's checking for all those things. Once that is ready, your MCP server will be up and running. So do not worry, MCP and the Q developer CLI will do that for you. Okay, so if you see here, it's installing pip3 install AWS Labs EKS MCP server. So if it is not there, it is going ahead and installing it for you. Okay, so what we can do is, as I've already installed it, so if you see here, it is downloading all the packages required. So it's a simple process. So ask the Q developer CLI and it will have everything ready for you. Okay, so firstly it will check where exactly the config file for Amazon Q is present. There it will go ahead and change the configuration as well. So I'll just type in Control C, and it will exit out of it, as I already have the queue configured, so I don't have to do it again. Now what we can do is, if you go back to the AWS console, I'll show you, this is my console, and if I go into AWS Elastic Kubernetes Service, if you see here, there are 0 clusters that are running today, right? So what we can do is, we can ask the Amazon Q developer CLI, which is having the EKS MCP server, to go ahead and create a cluster with 2 nodes, and we can also pass, let's say I want to name that cluster as EKS MCP demo. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'll come back here and I'll just type in, please create, let me go back, create an EKS cluster with the name EKS MCP demo, and I want 2 nodes. Please monitor and let me know once the cluster is up and running. Okay, so I've typed this and I will hit enter, and if you give some moments, I think it will take 20 odd minutes for a cluster to be up and running. So it is going to think for a while and first check if it has got all the credentials and details. If that is clear, it will go ahead and proceed in the creation. If you see here, just observe this, using the tool manage_EKS stack from the MCP server, AWS Labs EKS MCP server, that confirms that it is using AWS EKS MCP server to create this particular cluster. Okay, so if I go ahead and type T and hit enter, it will trust and it will go ahead and start creating the CloudFormations template, which is required in order to create the EKS cluster. Basically, Q will go ahead and interact with your AWS CloudFormation, and CloudFormation template will be created, and then your EKS cluster will be created as well. So right now I've agreed to the terms saying that you can go ahead and generate the YAML file which is required to create the CloudFormation stack. After that, it will go ahead and create the CloudFormation stack and then deploy the cluster itself. So let's wait for that to complete. So if you see here, that is deployed in this particular, the template is ready in this file, in this folder, and it's completed. Now it will go ahead and deploy that as well. So once the deployment is complete, it will also let you know if the cluster is up and running. So you also need to mention monitor and let me know once the cluster is up and running, because it might exit saying that it will take some time for you to, for it to deploy the cluster. So you can come back after 20 minutes or 30 minutes. That will be a problem for you. So if you mention that to monitor and let you know once the cluster is up and running, so it will become easy for you. So let's wait until the cluster is ready and then let's come back. Again, if you see here, it is using the MCP server, EKS MCP server to deploy. If you see here, the operation is deploy. Previously, the operation was generating the template, and now it is deploying the template. All right. So once the deployment succeeds, you will also see the cluster up and running in your AWS console. Now let's go ahead and check in the console if the AWS CloudFormation stack is being created. Okay. So if you observe this carefully, EKS MCP server demo stack, creation is in progress and it's just started it, right? So once that is complete, it will also let you know the stack is up and running and the cluster will also be ready. So let's wait until that is done, right? So if you see here, the stack is currently create in progress status. It will continue to monitor the progress and check back after 2 minutes and then let you know if the cluster is up. All right, so I just waited for 20 odd minutes, and if you observe this carefully, it has created the EKS cluster with the name EKS MCP demo. It's successfully created. This is the name, the status, the version of Kubernetes, the node type, the endpoint, the region in which it is deployed, the VPC server, VPC address, and all those things, right? So if you want to see the same on AWS, if you see here, let me refresh the page once. So this is the cluster, if you see, and this is the corresponding stack as well. Okay, so if you want to see more details, this is the Kubernetes version, upgrade insights, the server endpoint, the resources, all those things. So currently there are no pods running, so that's why it is showing 0 pods. Now let's do one thing. Let us ask the MCP server to create a deployment where we are going to deploy the Nginx, and let us intentionally make a mistake in the deployment file and see how it fixes the issue, right? So let's do that. So can you let's ask, can you create a Nginx deployment for me with 2 pods? Give me the deployment.yaml file for me to create. Okay, so let's run this and see how it responds. Okay, so it is saying I'll create a Nginx deployment file, and if you see here, this is the deployment file, and it is creating Nginx deployment.yaml in the current working directory. So I'll trust it, and by typing T and hitting enter. So let's give it a moment for it to create. All right, so if you see here, it has created Nginx deployment.yaml. This is the name, the number of replicas, image, port, and all those things. So let's do one thing. Let's go into this file. If you see here, this is the file, and I'll make a known mistake, which is, if you see, the image is Nginx. So instead of X, I'll make it Y, and I'll save it. Okay. Now what we can do is, let us simulate this error and see if this can fix the issue, right? So for that, I'll open another shell. Okay, so let me open another shell. Here, what I'll do is, I'll just see kubectl get pods. So just to confirm if there are any pods running. So it says no host. Okay, so we need to run the EKSCTL configure command. So if you do not know that, you can ask the MCP server again. So let's utilize that. So give me the command to configure the cluster on my machine, right? So let's run this. Let's see what the response is. All right, so here is the command, AWS EKS update kubeconfig and the region. So let me just copy this. All right, so and go into the other shell, and I'll type this as well, and the config should be updated. If you see here, the config is updated. Now let me run kubectl get pods. You see there are no resources found in the default namespace. So what we can do is, let us run this deployment.yaml file by applying it and see what is the error that we're going to get. Of course, we should get an error because we have given the image as engine-y, which doesn't exist at all, right? So it should give me, of course, I think it will be image pullback error if I'm not wrong. So let's see what is the issue. So for that, let me clear the screen first. I'll type in kubectl apply -f and nginx deployment.yaml. Okay, so let me just select that and I'll hit enter. Let's see what happens. Okay, so if you see here, deployment nginx deployment is created, and in service is also created. So let's now run kubectl get pods and see what has happened. Kubectl get pods. If you see, it is saying pending from 20 3 seconds, but Nginx should be deployed within few seconds, but it's not running. So let me run it again. Still pending. So if you see here, it has changed the status to error image pullback. So that's the right error that I mentioned. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to the MCP server here. I'll just say I ran the deployment .yaml file, but the pods are failing. Can you check what the issue is and resolve it as well? Okay, now let me hit enter and see if this can be done by the MCP server or not. So I'm just saying that I've just deployed the deployment.yaml file, but the pods are failing as well. And I'm asking to check what the issue is and if this can fix the issue. So if you observe carefully, again, it is using AWS Labs EKS MCP Server. It is listing the pods, listing the resources, and the namespace it is selected is default. So it is checking all the things that are in default. And if you see here, I can see 2 Nginx pods are created. Let me check their detailed status and events to understand why they are failing. So I need to allow this. So let me type T and hit enter. All right, so here's the thing. It says, I found the issue. There is a typo in image name. The event shows it's trying to pull engine Y instead of engine X. Let me check the current deployment and fix this. So if you see here, it has rightly pointed what is the exact issue, and it is also changing the issue and resolving it. So let me type in T and hit enter. So this will of course fix the issue, and I will be able to access the EKS, Nginx cluster deployed on the, Nginx pod deployed on this cluster. Now with that, let's allow some time for it to fix the issue and then come back again. So with this, what the question we have is, will it replace our job? So that's a very, very important question that we need to ask. So according to me, what happens for SRE and infra team is that the expectation that you have will go up. So you will no longer troubleshoot, common issues that are already available in the internet, because as they have already fed into these LLMs and they can resolve the issues now. So you are expected to work on more complex things. And other thing which can go, in place is that, let's say right now, if your manager or your management is expecting you to complete the deployment within few months, that might turn into weeks, because as they are also aware, all this can be integrated, all these LLM tools and the agents can be used. They would ask you to complete the exact same things within few weeks rather than taking months together. And you should be aware of troubleshooting. You should be aware of the basics, because if you have the basic knowledge, of course, you can build on the next troubleshooting skills and exactly point out what is the issue. So common issues like this can be resolved easily by the LLM tools, and they might, resolve the issue in future as well. The advanced, troubleshooting challenges. But yeah, this is what I think. Let me know in the comments what you think, if this will replace your SRE or DevOps job. Let us know in the comments, right? But for now, let's go ahead and check if this is fixed. Okay, so it is fixing it actually. So fix the typo in Nginx deployment, change the file. I think it is already changed. If you see here, I did not make any changes. It has already changed it. Perfect. Now let me check the status of the pods and see if they are recovering, and it is checking is that as well for, but then let us also check in the other tab. Okay, now if you see, the pods are running, and you can also check the service as well. So, okay, so if you see here a load balancer is present, let me just copy this load balancer URL, go into my browser, paste it, and you should be seeing the Nginx pod up and running for you. Okay, so it might take some time, but it actually fixed the issue, right? So that's the whole thing. So it found out what is the exact error and it fixed the exact error as well. But it still says it's thinking and it's still running, but because the reason is it has run sleep 30 seconds. But yeah, this is my take on the EKS MCP server that AWS have launched. I think this is going to be the future, because if you integrate these, you can actually save time and invest more on learning the complex technologies rather than just troubleshooting the known issues, right? So that's it I had for this particular video. If you're liking the content that I'm creating, please consider subscribing and share it with your friends. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one. But then wait, so do you think this MCP combination with Kubernetes will take your job? Let us know in the comments. Thank you. Bye.